The story of the Milwaukee Bucks' 2021 championship season begins long before the playoffs. It starts with a team trying to prove that it was more than a regular season contender. Milwaukee had spent years building a roster around Giannis Antetokounmpo, a player who was already a two-time MVP but still searching for a championship breakthrough. The team came into the 2020-21 season carrying the weight of back-to-back disappointing playoff exits, and there was a sense inside the organization that everything needed to be sharper, tougher and more prepared for the postseason. The front office made important moves before the season tipped off. They brought in Jrue Holiday, a guard known for elite defense and steady decision-making. This was not just another addition. Holiday gave Milwaukee a real two-way presence who could take pressure off Giannis and Khris Middleton in fourth-quarter moments. It also showed the league that Milwaukee was done waiting. The Bucks gave up assets and took a risk because they believed the window to win was right now. The regular season opened with a different tone. The Bucks were learning to balance Giannis' dominance with a more controlled play style that would translate better to playoff basketball. Middleton settled into a rhythm early, carrying the offense in stretches and showing a level of reliability the team had long counted on. Brook Lopez continued anchoring the paint with his size and shot blocking, and Holiday adapted quickly to his role as the stabilizer who made life easier for everyone around him. The coaching staff worked quietly but constantly on adjustments that would matter in May and June. They talked about switching defenses more often, preparing counters for teams that packed the paint against Giannis, and sharpening their half-court execution. The team understood that regular season success meant little unless they could translate it into postseason confidence. As a result, the season became a testing ground. Losses were treated as lessons rather than setbacks, and moments where the offense stalled were reviewed closely to find gaps in spacing and timing. Giannis carried his usual workload, driving to the rim, cleaning the glass and defending multiple positions. What made this season different was his willingness to trust the system more than ever. Instead of trying to force plays when defenses collapsed on him, he kicked out early, kept the ball moving and allowed Middleton and Holiday to take more control when the situation required it. His leadership matured, not through speeches but through his understanding of when the game needed his force and when it needed his patience. The Bucks entered the second half of the season with renewed confidence. They had already gone through stretches where key players missed games, and the team had learned how to win without relying solely on Giannis. This balance mattered because it meant opponents could no longer overload their defense and predictable. The NBA Finals opened with a sense of anticipation that few series could match. The Phoenix Suns were a team of precision and chemistry, led by Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and a young center in DeAndre Ayton who was coming into his own. They played fast, moved the ball well, and carried the momentum of a confident playoff run. On the other side stood the Milwaukee Bucks, a team defined by physicality, resilience, and the emotional weight of Giannis Antetokounmpo's remarkable return from what appeared to be a devastating knee injury. The contrast in styles, personalities, and paths brought an extra layer of intrigue to a series that would ultimately become unforgettable. In Game 1, the Suns controlled the pace. Chris Paul dissected defensive coverages with the calm of a veteran who had waited his entire career for this moment. Devin Booker attacked mismatches and found his rhythm early. Ayton dominated the interior with offensive rebounds and easy finishes. Giannis returned and played well, showing bursts of his trademark aggressiveness, but he was clearly working his way back into full strength. Milwaukee struggled to defend the pick and roll, allowing Phoenix to dictate the flow of the game. The Suns took the opener, and analysts quickly began to wonder whether Milwaukee could adjust quickly enough. Game 2 followed a similar script. Phoenix's ball movement created open looks, and their role players hit timely shots. Booker caught fire, scoring from mid-range and beyond the arc. The Suns' home crowd grew louder with each made basket, sensing the possibility of a commanding lead in the series. Despite the loss, there were signs of what Milwaukee could build on. Giannis delivered a monstrous performance, scoring over 40 points and showing that his knee, while still healing, had not robbed him of his dominance. His effort kept the Bucks within reach even as they fell behind 2-0. Returning home for Game 3, the Bucks faced a turning point. Going down 3-0 would effectively end the series. The pressure was enormous, but Milwaukee embraced the moment. Their defensive intensity increased. Holiday hounded Paul with physical, relentless coverage. Middleton found better spacing and more comfortable shot opportunities. Giannis delivered another extraordinary performance, attacking the paint repeatedly, drawing fouls, and wearing down Phoenix's frontcourt. The energy inside Fiserv Forum helped fuel a blowout win that shifted the momentum. The confidence that had been shaken in Phoenix began to rebuild. Game 4 became one of the most important games of the entire playoffs. Both teams knew the stakes. Phoenix opened strong and looked poised to regain control, with Booker delivering a brilliant scoring display. Holiday struggled offensively, but his defensive pressure created problems for Chris Paul, who committed several uncharacteristic turnovers. The Suns maintained a lead deep into the second half, but Milwaukee refused to go away. Middleton stepped. And the days that followed Milwaukee's championship win, the city moved with a kind of energy that only comes when decades of waiting finally break into celebration. Fans filled streets, lined sidewalks, and gathered in the Deer District long after the final buzzer. People who had watched the team through years of rebuilding felt a sense of pride that went beyond sports. The championship wasn't just about basketball. It was about identity, endurance, and belief. For a small market franchise often overlooked in national conversations, the title carried meaning that stretched far outside a statistical summary. Inside the organization, the players and coaches tried to grasp the scale of what they had accomplished. Giannis Antetokounmpo, who had arrived in the league as a skinny teenager learning English and adjusting to a new life, now stood as the Finals MVP who delivered one of the most dominant performances in championship history. His 50-point masterpiece in Game 6 became a symbol of what hard work, dedication, and loyalty could produce. Reporters asked him how he managed such a performance after his injury, and his answers reflected the humility that made him so beloved. He talked about trusting his body, leaning on his teammates, and listening to the guidance he had received from coaches and family. His willingness to stay in Milwaukee rather than leave for a bigger market became a defining part of the championship story. In a league where super teams often dominate the headlines, Giannis chose a different path, and that decision reshaped everything. Khris Middleton's journey also stood out as a story of persistence. He had been traded from Detroit and arrived in Milwaukee with no guarantees. Year after year, he developed his game, sharpening his shooting, improving his decision-making, and learning how to lead in critical moments. His calm presence during the playoffs, especially during the Nets and Hawks series, became one of the keys to the Bucks' success. Middleton had been underrated for years, but the championship elevated him into the national spotlight. People finally recognized the value he brought, the ability to create shots under pressure, the confidence to take big moments, and the steadiness to anchor the offense when Giannis needed support. Jrue Holiday completed the trio with a contribution that went far beyond points. His defense throughout the playoffs, especially against elite scorers, changed games. He disrupted rhythm, forced turnovers, and executed timely plays with a quiet intensity. The trade that brought him to Milwaukee had been questioned initially because of the cost, but the championship silenced every doubt. The steal against Booker in Game 5 and the lob to Giannis became iconic highlights that will live in Milwaukee history. His presence gave the Bucks the kind of two-way player they had long been missing. Role players also played significant parts in the story. Brook Lopez, once known primarily as a scorer, EMB,